lighting designer, my job is focused on transformation. I take blank slates, empty theaters, stages, sets, costumes, and turn them into nuanced, cohesive visual worlds for performers and audiences to inhabit. Lighting designers are curators in that we generally don't work in isolation. Instead, we take content that's mostly designed by others, like sets and costumes and onstage action, and we use tools like color, texture, and intensity to shape an audience's perception of the work of those directors and other designers. My job has a couple of parts. By day, I run the MFA program in lighting design at the University of Georgia, where I teach graduate and undergraduate courses in lighting design and technology, and maybe most importantly, where I mentor student designers preparing for careers in the entertainment industry. By night, I work professionally as a lighting designer, where I collaborate with theater, dance, and opera companies in addition to orchestras across the country. As the designer, it's my job to decide which lights we'll use for a production, where we'll put them, how they'll get focused, and to manage all the people involved in that process. Once everything's working, we use a computer to store a set of light cues, which are sort of like photographs in that they represent discrete instances of different combinations of lights doing different jobs. I often find that the strongest reactions to my work come from dramatic shifts in color. Most of my personal practice is in the theater, where it's common to move quickly from relatively realistic scenes lit mostly in white to big, dramatic, colorful looks. And those transitions often yield strong audience reactions. Because they're rich and visually dynamic, yes, but also because we're biologically and culturally attuned to color and its meanings. Understanding those associations allows me to deploy color strategically in my work to emphasize meaning, direct attention, foreshadow, and set a mood on stage. Our experience of the world around us, including color, starts with photoreceptors, which are cells in the retina that collect specific kinds of light and pass it off to the brain for processing. Rods help us sense light and dark, motion, aid in peripheral vision, and can function even in low light conditions. Cones function best in brighter light and respond specifically to red, green, and blue wavelengths, which in combination allows us to see a full range of colors. But vision alone isn't enough. We really need our brains to name and contextualize color information if it's going to be of any use to us. Without a word like red, for example, we wouldn't have a way to warn others to avoid poisonous red berries. Experts generally agree that languages develop color words only as they're needed. So while we've had the same photoreceptors and been able to see the same colors as long as we've been a species, our color vocabulary has shifted dramatically over time. One famous example is Homer, the Greek poet, who often referred to the sea as wine dark because the ancient Greeks didn't have a word for blue in the same way that we do. It does appear that all languages have words for black and white. An ability to describe that distinction is probably a biological imperative, because it allows us to do things like identify the difference between good and bad weather, talk about movement, maybe even point out the location of a camouflaged predator. Incredibly, after black and white, every language has developed color words in exactly the same order. So next comes red, which is likely useful for identifying danger, then yellow and green, which probably help us talk about food items, then blue and brown, and finally, purple, gray, and pink. The colors at the end of that list are really biological wants rather than needs. Highly industrialized societies might benefit from words like purple and pink to help us describe manufactured items in daily use. Less industrialized societies, of course, can see all the same colors, but might have less need to describe them with a single word. Once we have a variety of words to describe things, it's natural for us to start sorting those words by their characteristics, and color is no exception. All colors have at least two definable qualities, which we call hue and saturation. Hue is just another word for color. So red, orange, orchid, tan, and green are all hues. Saturation describes depth of color. Sky blue, for example, describes a blue that's probably closer to white than navy blue. And forest green describes a green that's almost certainly deeper or darker than grass green. Combinations of hue and saturation evoke predictable and often universal responses. Red makes us feel angry or passionate, and bright red can make us feel like the thing we're looking at is urgent. Biologically, that's because we're primed to detect blood flow to the skin, both because that's a way to know whether other people are interested in us, like when they blush, and also to detect anger and prepare for possible fight or flight. Red also has strong cultural associations. We often use red signs, for example, to mean stop, go here in case of an emergency or danger. By contrast, blue makes us feel calm or peaceful. Exposure to blue in general and blue light in particular seems to stimulate the production of serotonin. Culturally, that might be because we associate blue with the open sea or sky and a lack of captivity. One of the most astonishing aspects of visual processing is that our brains can see colors our eyes can't. There's no pink light, for example, on the visible spectrum. Visible light waves go from red to purple through green. But we experience color in a circle rather than on a straight line, and our brains have invented pink to fill in that empty space. Pink is a relatively new addition to the English language. It was first written down during the Renaissance, and it's one of our more controversial color words because of its associations with femininity. But that pairing is also fairly new. As late as the early part of the 20th century, contemporary color gender roles were reversed. Blue was associated with femininity because it was felt to be delicate, while pink was strong and masculine. Those roles reversed in the 1940s and 50s, which is probably a strong indication that there's no concrete link between color and gender or sexuality. While some of our color associations have strong physiological components, others are strictly cultural. And we often need that cultural context to help us inform color meanings because lots of colors have contradictory connotations. Green, for example, seems to evoke a generally peaceful physiological response, but it has much less pleasant cultural connotations, like greed and jealousy, reptiles and amphibians, or illness. Similarly, some color associations are universal, but others are definitely local. Yellow is closely associated with lightheartedness or happiness in the United States, but in ancient Egypt or contemporary Myanmar, yellow is a mourning color. In China, red is closely associated with good fortune and prosperity, but in the United States, much more so with anger or passion. Advertisers routinely play on our biological and cultural associations with color. What sort of businesses do you think of when you look at this color combination? Maybe you said things like healthcare, insurance, or agriculture. And that makes sense, given the generally peaceful associations we've already identified with blue, and feelings of calm, health, and trustworthiness that can accompany green and white. How about this combination? Good participation. You almost certainly said things like fast food, or maybe gas stations. We've already seen that exposure to red can prepare the body for fight or flight, and warm colors more generally connote feelings of urgency. When used in combination, these colors can make us feel like the only possible time to stop for a hamburger or get gas is right now. So returning to my career. For a long time, the tools of my trade were exclusively the provenance of lighting designers. Theatrical lighting fixtures are expensive, and efficient LEDs either weren't yet invented or weren't widely available. But that's changed in recent years. Home improvement stores have always had aisles full of lighting, but the contemporary variety is pretty extraordinary. Chances are excellent that many of the people in this room can change the color of at least some of the lights in your home using an app on your phone. For the first time I'm aware of, it's possible to easily select the color temperature of your car headlights. And that control is just in lighting. You also have enormous color control of the other items in your daily life. That shift in availability means that it's now not just possible but practical for you to curate your personal color space based on a variety of emotional, physical, and work needs. So with that in mind, here are 3 ways you can leverage color in your personal life using items you already own or things that are relatively inexpensive and easy to get hold of. Looking to spark attraction? Try red. Wear a red outfit, red lipstick, even red nail polish. Red's attractive qualities are universal, and they seem to apply equally to men and women. Conversely, avoid red if you're working on difficult tasks like studying. Exposure to red and other saturated colors seems to limit achievement. Turn the lights to blue if you want to relax, have just been in a stressful situation, or want to evoke the outdoors while you're inside. But be cognizant of the time of day. Exposure to blue light can trick the brain into thinking that it's morning, which suppresses melatonin production, and that can keep you awake. That's the same reason you shouldn't spend time with your screens right before bed. Read and study under warm or neutral white light. Paint the rooms where you work white or light yellow, and always take notes on white or light yellow paper. These colors increase visual contrast and seem to stimulate brain activity. The colors surrounding us have a meaningful impact on our daily lives, and with just a little bit of context from science and culture, we can manipulate them to improve our overall well-being. Exactly like lighting a stage, the colors we choose carry meaning, so select them with care to shape the way you want to feel, think, and live. Thank you.